we got to scrape everything down to mineral earth, and then depending on the flame lengths and the weather, it's like how wide do you need to make that to prevent the fire from jumping it.
Yeah.
And so different tools they got different benefits to them. We got the Pulaski, of course.
Cool.
So you got your cutting edge there, but you also have like a scraping there. So,
So the way you use that tool is if you got like kind of like light to medium brush, you'd be cutting through with the axe end, the blade, and then once you get down to where you're trying to scrape the brush away from the soil, like grasses and things like that, then you're going to use this grubbing end right here.
So it helps really kind of like removing stuff while you're cutting, or is it kind of just like
Yeah, I can do that too. Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
Cool. So
So
it's like-
as you're cutting things, you can, we call it like bucket up, which is like just removing the material that you cut with that grubbing into that tool.
and with these tools, you would line up in a certain order to get the most amount of stuff off. So most of the time, the person in the front would be using this tool.
Okay.
The next person would be using kind of like this tool here, the McLeod. So you see it's got its tines there, and then just another kind of scraping off the back side of that.
And this works super well for scraping down to mineral soil. So you're trying to get through like grasses and things like that. The cutting edge of that is really good for scraping. If you get it at just the right angle, you really don't have to work very hard. The important thing about using these tools is using them at the right angle so that you're just letting the weight of the tool do the work. Because you need to be doing this, you need to be able to do it like all day.
Oh, so it's
you know
like-
what I mean?
Yeah, so like
you're
the
not
weight
like,
of it's gonna be
Yeah.
like helping you more than like your arms are.
exactly. You don't want to be like pushing with your arms a bunch because you'll tire out. So all you're doing really is lifting the tool and let it do the cut like that, and it's just scraping with the weight of the tool.
Oh.
So that you can do that all day and you're just kind of moving.
Yeah, I was wondering like why they're so heavy if you're gonna be using them for such like a long period of time. Like I was wondering like how long like would you usually like use these tools for like before you moved on to other equipment or
Long
something?
time.
Yeah,
Long time,
really.
yeah. And so it's kind of funny, there's a lot of tradition about firefighting where they basically will have an expectation of certain types of crews of how much line they can cut in a day. And they measure that in this really traditional way called chains. And a chain stands, this kind of a good little tidbit for you, like a chain equals 66 feet, is that
I
right?
think it's
66 feet of line. So they measure it in chains, like how many, okay, you got this crew, it's like Ben Lomond fire crew, how many chains a day can they cut line if you want like a one, and they'll measure it in width. Sometimes they'll do like a bulldozer. We have those bulldozers and they'll do like the width of the blade of a bulldozer. So they'll tell you, well, we need like one blade width, and then down from there, it's
Well, that's
just
a
like,
cool way of
yeah.
measuring. It's like a simpler way of using it.
Yeah.
Feet or like
Yeah.
66.
But generally speaking, I mean, you can cut like a super quick line, just pretty much the width of this McLeod, if there's not a whole lot of wind and not high flame lengths. That can be enough to slow a fire. On the chainsaw, and they'll cut away the medium-sized brush, like manzanita and stuff like that. Would be a good example. And they're cutting that away, and there's a firefighter behind them whose sole job is just to get that stuff out of the way. So he's just swamping stuff. So the sawyers will be out front, and they'll take care of like the heavier brush, but we're trying to move efficiently. So they're not like being super meticulous. They're just taking out the very largest of the brush. And then there's swampers behind them, removing that out of the way. And then behind them in the line is a few firefighters with usually something like a Pulaski, and they're doing a little bit more detail work on like what's left behind from what the sawyers were cutting. So the sawyers are cutting away that manzanita, if you imagine.
Yeah.
And then behind them come the Pulaskis, and the Pulaskis are where that stump is in the ground. They're kind of attacking that, right? And they're getting that out of the way. Maybe they turn this around and they're able to dig it out and grub it out of there. And once they do that, these guys don't worry about like the grasses and stuff like that are down there. They just keep moving on down
So
the
they
line.
just get whatever's like, kind of, like left
Yeah,
over.
and then it's kind of like a factory system almost.
Yeah,
right?
that's cool.
So then the guys behind them, they got the McLeods, and they're doing the finish work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
They're scraping
that's a lot
it
of
down to
sense.
mineral soil, and everybody's just kind of moving along in a line. And then every once in a while, you're gonna like leapfrog around so that you can take care of something specific. Like, hey, we need a McLeod up here, okay, bumping up, and they'll come up around.
Oh, that's cool.
That's
work,
cool.
and then get back in line. You
And
know
that
what I
just
mean?
like helps like kind of control and like set the boundaries for the fire and like get it
Exactly.
all out of the way.
Yeah, and so they're trying to like, it's really kind of a defensive way to keep the fire from spreading just by controlling where it can move by leaving a line that there's no fuel in. Right? So when the fire gets it, if the fire's not too aggressive, it's gonna either slow way down or at best it'll stop. But that's a dry line, there's no water involved at all. You know what I
So
mean?
yeah, so most of like wildland firefighting is kind of like controlling it as opposed to putting it out.
Exactly, you're trying to direct it and
Yeah.
control it or keep it from taking its own path because it's gonna follow. Basically, when you look at like a hillside or a terrain, wherever you would imagine water flowing in that terrain is where the fire is gonna go, except in the opposite direction.
Oh really?
We work for CAL FIRE and the U.S. forestry crews who are out there doing this all the time, like almost season long. Their tools last a long time too, though, because they're maintaining them so well. So,
Yeah.
I mean, they'll last years. These tools.
So it's like cool, it's like they're simple, like they
Yeah.
last a long time. They
And
kinda
you can
like-
repair them. So,
Yeah.
like, it's not like if I take a chunk out of this tool, I can actually repair it. I can file it down and get it working again, sharpen it up. I can replace handles. And when we're on fires, we can go into base camp and they'll replace a handle for us.
That's
Or
cool.
whatever. They've got a whole shop set up. And you just bring your broken tool. You got to show them all the pieces. So you're not just sitting there going like, hey, I need a tool.
Yeah.
No. Show us what you did. Because if it's on their fire, they'll pay for it. So you show them what you did, and then they'll give you a new tool. Chainsaw is huge. The chainsaw, definitely use, and then this is a back pump. So that's to carry a little bit of water on your back. And you want to use it super sparingly though, you know, because you're gonna run out pretty quick. But that back pump is for putting out little tiny fires, like stump fire or something like that. If it's a big stump, you're not gonna put it out with that. But little tiny things, you can take that.
That's pretty cool.
It fills up with water and you can carry it on your back, and it's got a little pump nozzle there that just works in a pumping action to squirt water out.
That's like a water gun.
Yeah, it's a total water gun that you wear, you know. Drip torches to light fires. So the same thing is trying
Burn
to,
them out before they
yeah,
get
get rid of the fuel, so then the fire has nothing to burn, you know, and it creates an area that the fire can't travel through. That's hot.
So like you're able to kind of like just like mix it so it'll like kind of do like what you need it to do and like at the
Exactly.
like intensity that you need it to do.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. So it's just the ratio of gasoline to diesel. Are the two fuels that we mix into there, and yeah, it'll burn a lot hotter the more gasoline that we have in there.
So and then this is the kind of the wick in there, so you would light that and that would go. And then this is the tube that has the mixture in here, and that's your little
So that wick
bleeder.
stays lit. the
So
whole
this
time.
stays lit. So when you're walking by and you're pointing, that's why I call it a drip torch. It'll drip off of here, drip fire. It'll drip it through there, straight down onto whatever you're trying to burn.
The wick
But
is just constantly lighting that stream.
That's what
of
like I
gasoline.
heard that there was like a few instances like not like in California but like in like other states on the west coast that like some areas don't use them because of like the
Yeah.
possible fire like
you have to be specially
Like,
trained and go through
yeah.
a lot of classes and on it, and it has to be on, like the weather has to be right, the wind has to be right, the humidity has to be right, like everything has to be right
just so it doesn't
for
get
it.
out of control.
Exactly, because there's always a chance when you hear of like a fire going out of control or anything like that, a control fire that we have that goes out of control. It's sometimes because they're just lighting it off. You know, they did all the parameters, they cut their line, they had everything set up that way. But when they were dripping, the wind just picked it up, took a little spark or a little piece of ember, dropped it over the line. And once that happens, there's no protection on that side of it, and it starts running off that side. So you got to be really careful anytime you're using fire to kind of create that defensible space too.